Michael Venom Page's run in the UFC has been somewhat disappointing. Losing to Ian Gowry was just so frustrating. And it was interesting because I picked Ian Gowry to win, and he kind of won for the reasons that I said with the grappling. But if you look in that third round, Ian Gowry on his back, Michael Venom Page is in full guard. He could have rode out the round and won the fight. But he decides to do one for the fans, stands up and tries to throw down with Ian Gowry and ends up losing the fight by decision, which was so frustrating for me to watch. But then looking at Michael Venom Page versus Sharaputdin Magomedov, if I was going to break down Sharaputdin Magomedov's weaknesses, it's pressure and boxing. He was getting pieced up by Armen Petrosian in the first round, who is essentially like a B-tier UFC fighter with decent kickboxing. Now, Michael Venom Page is so skilled at closing the distance and landing that straight right, even at like 35 years old. He's blindingly quick. And Sharaputdin, he does get hit. I mean, he's not going to have the depth perception of someone with two eyes. He's got one eye. So his ability to feel or comprehend Michael Venom Page closing that distance is going to be compromised. And I've picked Sharaputdin to lose in his last two fights, and he's won. And it makes me want to pick him, but I just can't. Like MVP, although he can make questionable fight IQ decisions in the fight, he's extremely skilled and he's extremely dangerous. He's got so much power, so much speed. He's an unorthodox technical striker. And the only way I kind of see Sharaputdin having a chance at winning this fight is if he catches MVP coming in with that big right hand and he gets the spinning back fist. That's kind of it. Like, the kicks could work on MVP, but MVP's so good. What we saw in the second Douglas Lima fight, he just got really good at either pulling his leg back or countering the low kicks. His main tactic against Douglas Lima, although he did lose that fight, was countering the low kick. So I think if Sharaputdin does go to that kicking game, he's going to get countered. He's going to get countered for kicking. And you think, what's the range that MVP works best at? Kicking range. Because most people's kicking range is MVP's punching range. And I don't see how Sharaputdin is going to be able to do anything to MVP on the feet. Anything. Other than potentially landing a high kick. Because the downside of having your hands really low is that you're susceptible to high kicks. But the flexibility, the reaction speed, the ability for MVP to just slide out of range and come back is pretty unprecedented. I mean, I think he's one of the only fighters other than Stephen Thompson and maybe Henry Cejudo, who's been able to utilize karate in the highest levels of MMA effectively. And I think MVP being an underdog, like, I understand. Sharaputdin, coming off wins in the UFC, MVP coming off a loss. You think, okay, maybe MVP isn't what we thought he was, but it's not always about momentum. I do think the psychology of the fighters going in is a big factor, but Sharaputdin, I almost think the confidence could be his undoing, because MVP knows if he wants a chance of fighting for the title, he needs a big win here. This is like a really important fight, so you'd like to think he's going to take it a bit more seriously. And I just think the biggest hole in Sharaputdin's game is the boxing. And MVP is just so dangerous. So I think in this fight, I'm going with MVP and I'm going to go with a second round knockout.